Hi, I'm Mark Sher. I'm the CEO and founder of Encompass Life and the host of the Encompassing Life podcast. Today we have Simon Mont, and Simon is the CEO founder of Harmonize, and he is interesting fellow. I've just been talking to him for a few minutes here, and he has started doing organizational work and coaching, kind of, sort of, as well.
Yeah,
A blended,
organizational development, consulting, coaching.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and blending it all together. Been doing it for about 10 years. And so he started out doing this at age 26, and he has a really interesting pattern of how he got into it. And I'm looking forward to finding out how what his business is about, and what's going on with him. So, Simon,
Yeah.
welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Mark.
You're
And yeah,
welcome.
well, co-founder with my dear friend Tamala Gresham.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, how did you know Tamala? Open
We
another
met in
door.
law school. Yeah, we met in law school actually after I had just made a very silly mistake and had been kind of publicly dragged for the mistake. And we reconnected years later. And
Your internet's going in and out. You just froze. So, if you could repeat what you just said again, that'd be great.
yeah, I'd met Tamala in law school actually after I had just made a really silly leadership mistake and was publicly dragged for it. She came and talked to me about it, and we had a great connection then. And then years later, we reconnected and started working together.
Huh? What do you mean by publicly dragged?
Oh, I was on a college campus. I was on in law school. I made this mistake, and then somebody wrote a letter, like an open letter about me, describing how exactly what I did was exactly what we shouldn't be doing. Um, and then people were talking about it. It was a silly
Awesome.
experience.
Any publicity is great publicity, right?
Yeah, I guess it led me to somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm a big proponent of the holy shit philosophy.
And what is that?
The shit inside inside of every shit thing that you do, there's a gold nugget if you choose to find it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure. Everything that's happened in my life, some of the things that happened that were the worst, the worst things when I could get away from them and quit bitching, moaning, and complaining about them, they always led me into something great. So
Yeah.
I believe somebody came to put those words together for a reason.
Yeah.
Or I guess you could call it divine dookie or spiritual poo poo, but you know,
There we go.
there you
You're
go.
riffing now.
Yeah, go for it. And so you've been doing this for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about the services you offer.
So it's holistic organizational development. So oftentimes when a person has a business or an organization, they can go to different consultants to get different services. You might go to one place to get strategic planning. You might go somewhere else to get conflict engagement. You might go somewhere else to get culture building. You might go
Hmm.
somewhere else to get advice on supervision. Go somewhere else to develop your org chart. You might go somewhere else to develop your internal processes. Somewhere
Hmm.
else to do
Hmm.
upskill your meeting facilitation,
Hmm.
and then somewhere else yet again to reflect deep on your own internal mindsets and behaviors as a leader and how that
Yeah, yeah,
influences
for
things.
real.
So what we do is we understand all of those things and the connections between them. So if so on the face of it, we work on strategy, operations, culture, leadership, and conflict.
Hmm.
And we kind of have the traditional offerings you might expect: strategic planning and theory of change and business model development,
Hmm.
culture trainings, reparative conversations, all that. But the secret sauce is really the ability to understand the underlying dynamics of a problem, and then what of those various things you actually need to address the problem.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. And you're what I do. We do coaching here as well, and I
Yeah.
found a lot of the people like you can do everything right and still screw it up.
Yep.
And some people you can do, some people you can give them here's a process, and they can do that process. They produce great results. Somebody else you can give them the process, and they still stay stuck because they're, beating themselves up and they have basically a crappy attitude. All the all the gray matter is keeping them from being able to implement those things and actually be successful.
Yeah.
So, so what do you do for the mindset or for the executive coaching?
I mean, it
How do you get your
really
how do you get your
depends on what the situation is. And it's really about understanding the organization and what the organization needs before understanding what the leader needs. What's happening in this space
hmm
that needs to change? And then being able to identify with that leader what they could make a shift in. Because
hmm
sometimes what they need is the process. Sometimes they need a technical skill and a knowledge base. Sometimes they need a mindset shift. Sometimes they just need some place to vent and process and have some good reflection. So we got to kind of understand the root cause of what is happening in their behavior that's then becoming a dynamic inside the organization.
or a good house cleaning. Get
Yeah.
rid of this, and this, and get rid of the snake energy in your company.
Mm-hmm.
And what type of clients do y'all normally work with?
Most of the time, it's nonprofits that are between 10 and 40 people. That's
hmm
mostly who we work with. But we have worked with people outside of that as well. We often work with founders, and then sometimes we've worked with kind of multinational, hundreds of people organizations too.
Awesome. And do you do most of your stuff over the internet, or you travel on site?
Most of it is online
Wow.
because we can create exactly the rhythm that the people need,
hmm
right? So if I'm working with a group that's based in Texas, and what we want to do is a process where we have, you know, a group training every other week and leadership coaching in between. You're not flying me out to Texas every week.
Mm-mm.
Right. But oftentimes there's also a in-person component. We'll do retreats, 2, 3 day long
hmm
work.
Team building, rope course, you do the obstacle stuff for any of that type of things as well, or
Less of that and more like really specifically targeted. So I'm going to be going out somewhere to do a strategic planning retreat. So it's in the months leading up to these 3 day retreat, we're going to be looking at um, all of their goals and all of their metrics and what they're trying to achieve and all their feedback. And then when we get there, we're going to redesign what they're focused on and how they're organized to get it done. That's what the retreat will be. And then,
gotcha,
sometimes it's, there's a group that's been in so much conflict. We got to get together and
hash it
process
out,
that. And,
put on some gloves or something.
yep.
So, do you have a example of your some of your success stories of where somebody started and where they ended up, and about the duration of your contract?
Yeah, lots of them. Think let's pick one of a longer project that I'll do an example of a longer one, then an example of a shorter one.
hmm
All right, a longer one is somebody put out requests for a proposal. They wanted strategic planning. They're
hmm
like, because they had all these different departments and they weren't clear about what the goals were, entity and focus of the organization was, and how everything connected. And that's what they said they wanted. But soon we realized that underneath that, there was also a lot of conflicts, interpersonal conflicts, and their organizational structure was bringing them into conflict, where people were stepping on each other's toes and miscommunicating because they weren't sure whose role was what.
mm
And then underneath that, there was also a big cultural conflict. People were um, criticizing each other for having different values and speaking in different languages about those values. And there was a huge breakdown of trust. So, right, you have a breakdown of strategy, structure, and culture happening all at the same time.
hmm
So we come in and we say, we're going to do strategic planning. But first, we have to build relationships with people to build trust, then notice who needs to learn more and skill up to even be able to participate in strategic planning.
hmm
Then get a group process with many stakeholders to try to define what the strategy is going to be, get everybody to agree to it and get on board with it, which involves navigating a lot of the conflicts that come up and repairing some of the relationships.
hmm
Then out of that, we rebuilt the structure, and now we're training everyone into a new structure, which also includes like everything from changing the way that supervision inside the organization works to the way that information moves through their online systems, all to get it aligned with the strategy that they've
Hmm.
achieved. Right. So that's a bigger project.
Mm-hmm.
And a smaller project might be, there was a group in New York, a small group. There were like 5 or 6 of them, and 2 of the people had this big conflict, and they couldn't a big interpersonal conflict. And now every time that they met, they couldn't get anything done because they were in conflict with one another.
Wow.
So with that, we'll come in, we interview everyone, we understand the underlying causes, then we meet with individuals to prepare them to engage the conflict. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that is like learning where they need to take accountability, where they need to grow, where they need to reframe something, and then have that conversation to repair. But instead of just making it be these 2 people now get along, we actually teach everyone new frameworks and new skills that help them communicate and also help them understand the problem differently. Like this was a problem about like a race dynamic. And one of the things that was creating the problem was the way that the people even understood what race was and what racism was. So we have to talk about that so that they get in a mindset that allows them to repair. So yeah,
Mm.
those are two examples.
Gotcha. What changed in the results of the company would due to your systems?
Well, for the first one, it's actual accountability to defined metrics, right? So you actually understand what you're trying to achieve and how you're trying to achieve it, and then you have uh, like way more efficiency inside of the organization because you're burning less energy on confusion and
Mm-hmm.
on conflict, and it's
Mm-hmm.
directed more toward your goals, and you're able to be accountable.
Were these nonprofits, I guess, or?
Yeah, so this one's a nonprofit, right? And I definitely spoke in nonprofitese there because with a for profit, oftentimes your key metric is the
Bottom
income that
line.
you're generating,
Yeah, right.
right? So
Bottom
it's very
line.
simple. And then when we're developing strategy, right, we're developing how do we maximize that? That's cool. That's one puzzle. But when you're inside of a nonprofit that has a mission, and let's say your mission is like this is a nonprofit that's focused on overall environmental health.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so even the question of how you understand what the environment is and what the metrics we're doing, where we're addressing are, and what is our role, because we're not going to save the environment. This group of 40 of us isn't going to
Right.
transform the environment. What exactly is our role and how do we network with other organizations? It's a different strategic puzzle. And that's one that a lot of people really struggle with because it's so complex and it's so important to define it well.
Hmm. So when you worked with them, what was there a like effectiveness rating or like or just everybody go, hey, we feel better about what we're doing and our
No, where
productivity.
there's each their organization with one, two, like 5 distinct departments, each
Mm-hmm.
that runs a different um, main initiative, and each of those departments now have department specific
Goals.
goals and priorities that are measurable that we can track toward, and the organization as a whole has its own success metrics.
Yeah.
Right, so we
People
can even
probably
begin this conversation of are we getting there or not.
yeah. A lot of people who work for the nonprofits, they have like they desire to do something great,
Mm-hmm.
and so they get involved in those, and then if there's a lot of conflict and stuff, then they get disillusioned with it. So they go,
Yep.
working for, I've got friends who work for nonprofits, and they says a lot of backstabbing and all
There's
that
all
stuff.
sorts of stuff that you meet in those
Yeah, yeah,
organizations, and
yeah.
and a lot of it that we notice, right, is you people go into it because they want to do something good and they
Hmm.
care about the area,
Right.
the issue area, right? These people, you had some people on staff, they showed up because they really care about the environment,
Hmm.
and they got a job, and then they realized most of their job was actually like administrative paperwork,
Hmm.
right? And they weren't, but they got there because they had a degree in environmental science. So you
Right.
end up with these values alignment skill mismatches
Yeah.
a lot inside of a nonprofit, and then you have to figure out how to respond
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah, and it's not like they're making a bunch of money.
Mhm.
Generally they have a way lower pay scale.
Yep.
So it's a labor of love. And then if you're doing a labor of love and being miserable for doing it,
You're not going to
sucks.
do it for very long.
Not go very long. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Beats and it beats working in one to work for one. But do they have a different pay scale than your for profits as well, or how does that work for you? Or
We
you
do sliding scale for everyone.
yeah,
So it'll depend on the organization and their budget, the type of work that it is, and mine and Tamala's availability in any
gotcha,
moment.
gotcha, cool. So what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
It's the website, harmonize.work. And you can go there, you can set up a conversation with me right away with one click and talk about whether it's a good fit. And you can also peruse all the different like details and services and everything.
Gotcha. How long does it usually take to go through the process before, like when you first start to meet somebody to getting a contract and actually starting to work? How long is it? How long does that wait?
Usually it's like 2 to 4 conversations with someone is
Hmm.
usually about how long it takes, but it's taken a lot shorter sometimes. And then some large contracts, that they're interviewing dozens and dozens of people. It'll take a while longer.
Gotcha. And um, how long does your contract usually last? What's the duration?
It'll depend on the service, but anywhere from a single training to I think the longest we'll ever usually sign is a year, but we work with people. There's a client we've been working with for 3 years, basically. We did a 6 month long contract, then we did another one, and then they have us on retainer.
Awesome. That's awesome, guy. Cool. Um, Anything else you'd like to add, or
No.
I do have one question I'll part with,
Yeah.
and my question is, what do you love about life?
The possibility to discover something new to love about it.
And you said you moved out to Santa Fe for children, so you could have children. Are you a dad now?
Yep.
Oh, congratulations
Yep.
again.
My wife's taking a nap. My parents are in the other room babysitting right now.
And,
Yeah.
one, how many do you have now?
One so far.
Awesome. Boy, girl.
Boy,
What have you learned about yourself by having children?
a lot. I see what I'm really confronting and working with right now is the way I can be grumpy or depressed and imagine myself a victim of life and not embracing the joy and the beauty and like really giving myself permission to enjoy life.
Hmm.
And I see that because I so want him to be able to feel joy. So it's a real calling in for me to embody that so that he can
Uh,
have that role model.
yeah, that's you got to clean up your stuff in front of your kids for sure.
Yep.
Cool. Well, Simon, great to have you on the show. I wish you much success, and maybe we'll get together again soon, dude.
Yeah, I'll let you know if I'm in Florida.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank
Bye.
you.